This is easily the album I had the highest hopes for this year. Hi everyone, welcome to Music Monday. My name is Benjamin and it is time to review the second LP by the Nova Twins, fittingly titled Supernova. Nova Twins have really been pushing genre boundaries with what they call urban punk, with very big influences from punk obviously, pop punk, but also hardcore and some new metal. They really have created one of the most interesting new sounds with their previous work, their EPs and their 2020 album Who Are the Girls, but they stepped up their production value and their songwriting with this new album and it's truly amazing. The first thing that's really notable on this record is the bass work by Georgia South. Bass is an instrument that's highly underrated and underused in modern rock music. Most bands use it as a background element or a complementary element, but the Nova Twins put it in the center of their music and I assume their songwriting as well, which makes sense given that Georgia is such an extraordinary bass player. Hearing her play on this album truly makes you question why bass is so underused, because the avenues that their sound goes into, thanks to her energetic and fresh power on the instrument, are pure gold. The way she plays with distortion and different intensities truly makes her one of the best bass players, if not the best bass player of modern music. She expands upon the usage, influence and soundscape of bass today in a way that is comparable to what James Jamerson did back in the 60s and 70s for bass, and he's now hailed as one of the greatest bass players by many, and I can easily see Georgia joining these ranks in the future. After all the praise for her, let's talk about Amy Love for a second, who is a very versatile vocalist. She pulls off these big energy choruses like on Cleopatra or Enemy with the boss bitch energy as convincingly as she does the also very energy-fueled rap elements, as well as the sing-along choruses like K.M.B. or the bridge on Choose Your Fighter. A very impressive song is Toolbox, that starts out with the high vocals, later goes into the way lower rap, but then the triumphant chorus. On Puzzles and K.M.B. there are some heavy screams that suit her really well. She just manages to match every type of energy and switch between them effortlessly, which makes for an album that flows together very nicely. Another contributing factor to that is their attention to detail and their ability to introduce gimmicks into songs but still make the overall album sound cohesive. I'm thinking of the stereotypical Egyptian music inspired bass line on Cleopatra or the intro to Kill My Boyfriend, who both could very well be cringe-inducing factors if not done correctly, but the Nova Twins managed to pull them off. Just like the well-placed sound effects and little details that they throw in from time to time, the outro on Puzzles is a great example here that almost goes into a prog-roggy vibe and actually reminds me of the instrumental in the middle of Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love. Another very weird influence, but a good one. This album is just very diverse in what it has to offer, from the heavier cuts to the anthemic cuts to the closer that's a little slower but still kicks ass. A Dark Place for Something Beautiful is in parts very Billie Eilish-y, an influence that I did not expect to see in here. From the powerful intro to the eerie closer, this album from front to back is really just very well crafted. This also goes for the lyrical side of the album, that deals with personal struggles as well as political issues, specifically the empowerment of marginalized groups and the Black Lives Matter movement in particular. The album was written during COVID, which should have been their time of triumph, going out and playing shows after their critically acclaimed debut album, but instead was a time of great uncertainty and frustration for many, which can definitely be heard on Supernova with fierce, energetic, but also triumphant performances and lyrics. Attitude is another topic worth bringing up. Nova Twins are here to stay and prove everyone wrong who doubts them or their place in the space of heavy music as women, especially women of color. There's something stunning, inspiring and admirable in their boss bitch DIY approach and attitude that seems genuine and real because it is. They do almost everything themselves, from outfits to music videos to parts of the production process, and their music is all the better for it. And the incredible part to me is that it does not feel like this album is their ceiling. It feels like they are pushing into a sound and level that is entirely new territory. Their genre-bending sound is just proof that trying to box music into genres is an outdated concept that needs a serious overhaul. The example that Nova Twins have set with this album is important, and they are at the forefront of what I would consider the new movement of rock music that dares to challenge basically everything, and I don't think that Nova Twins can be ignored any longer with the show of force that Supernova is. All of that being said, I did have some slight issues at first that aren't really deserving of the word issue, but are there and I can't ignore them. Specifically part of the second half of the album, the songs Toolbox, Choose Your Fighter and Enemy. None of them are worse than the rest of the album in terms of songwriting and execution, but there's something here that makes them feel slightly off, and I couldn't pinpoint it at first. I think it's the mix and master that does not quite match the rest of the album, and that does make sense, considering that all of the album was co-produced by K.M.B, except for these 3 songs, who were co-produced by Romesh Dondagonda. There is something here that I just can't wrap my head around yet. It's not a bad sound, it's just a slight inconsistency that did catch me off guard, but definitely not in a major way. For the rating, I was therefore initially torn between a very strong 9 out of 10 or a good 10 out of 10. But the more I listened to the album, the more it grew on me. These 3 songs specifically are now not an issue anymore. They never were, they're just a slight inconsistency, but that's not a well enough reason to not give this album a perfect 10 out of 10 rating. If you haven't, please do yourself a favor and check this album out. It's not just perfect, it's also the best album of the year. At least so far.